The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
The big news of TJ Watt's contract extension with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast.
TJ Watt has signed a massive, and I mean massive, contract extension with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Omar Khan getting it done in crunch time just before Steelers training camp. Literally, Steelers report to camp next Wednesday. So huge move for the Steelers to keep their number one guy. Now, this has been a talking point, and I mean a major talking point for Steelers fans for months, because this is the last year of TJ Watt's current contract. He was making about $30 million a year. Myles Garrett got a contract that paid him $40 million a year, resetting the market for what edge rushers are going to be paid. And so many Steelers fans have been saying, Chris, is that too much money? You know, that sounds a lot. $40 million. Quarterbacks used to make that kind of money. Quarterbacks still kind of make that kind of money. What are we doing here? Bottom line is, as we've said here on the Locked On Steelers podcast for months, this was always going to be done. I kept telling people, you're worrying about it right now because it's not signed on the dotted line. You don't have everything lined up right in front of you. But TJ Watt was always going to get this deal once the Steelers had everything locked in. I'm pretty sure the Steelers have had an offer out to TJ Watt. There were some things here and there they had to make sure of, but TJ Watt locked it down and was going to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers. That was always the plan. We talked to his teammates, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig. He posted a picture with Nick Herbig earlier today, and we talked to Denzel Martin, his position coach. Everyone said the same thing. They expect TJ Watt to be a Steeler, and not only will he be a Steeler, he will be showing up to training camp with a deal in hand, no questions asked. So what does this mean? Well, let's get all the details for this contract first, because that's the really big thing here, right? Is trying to see, okay, how much exactly did TJ Watt get paid? It's a 3-year extension. What does that mean? It means it goes on top of this current year, which was the last year of his contract. So now he is under the Steelers salary cap for the next 4 total seasons, 3 on top of this current season. He is going to be making $123 million off in new money on those next three years. That is going to be a big part of what the Steelers have been looking at. But the bottom line to this is it's a $41 million a year contract. That is how much money TJ Watt is going to make on average on the new 3 years of his deal. And it's also $108 million in guaranteed money. That's a big part of this too, is the guaranteed money. We'll get more into that in a bit. But for those who are sitting there wondering, $41 million, that's a lot of money, Chris. Not in today's NFL salary cap. And I'm going to keep hammering this home. I'm not trying to break my desk as I literally hammer this home for the millionth time on this podcast. But $41 million is less of today's salary cap than it was when TJ Watt signed for an average $28.5 million per year when he signed his last contract extension with the Steelers back in 2021. It is less of the salary cap now, $41 million is, than $28.5 million was back in 2021. That is how much money the NFL has been making to expand their salary cap so that the numbers that you thought what a position should be paid is broken. They're not what you thought they should be anymore. This is now going to be the number that edge rushers, top tier edge rushers, are paid for. I also think it's huge for the Steelers that they get this in before anything happens with Micah Parsons, because if something happens there, maybe that resets the market again. But now, Omar Khan, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to ask questions about it. Right now, the Steelers have their guy, TJ Watt, locked in, ready to go moving forward. And I think this is huge because nothing happens with this team without TJ Watt. Nothing. This team has a lot of other moving parts to it. Aaron Rodgers, that's exciting. The offensive line could develop this year. They have other good players on defense. They just added Jalen Ramsey. But TJ Watt is still the centerpiece of this team. And without TJ Watt, they're going to have to find so many different ways to win. That's why it was never really in the equation for the Steelers to trade him, let him go. That's why every time that was brought up, I said that this was not, there was no question he was not getting traded. Stop asking, oh, is it going to be 2 first-round picks in a second? That's why we kept saying on the Locked On Steelers podcast, This was never happening. If you've been watching us, you've been listening to us, it's what it's always going to be. And and again, I think there's a lot of Steelers fans who are right here on this live stream right now. Shout out to everyone who's here with me saying, hey, he earned it. This is money deserved by TJ Watt. This isn't Omar Khan handing off a pass work. This guy is still one of, if not the best edge rusher in the NFL, one of still the best defensive players in the NFL. I just did a show yesterday talking about why since he's been in the league, he has the most sacks, the most tackles for loss, the most forced fumbles, the most pressures, the most quarterback hits of any player in the NFL since he's entered the league. And he did the same year as Myles Garrett. He also has, in that time, the most interceptions and passes defense of any edge rusher in the NFL, any defensive lineman in the NFL. And you would put him in that category, take away defensive backs. He's got the most. He is that guy, and he still is that guy. The question people say, well, he had 11 and a half sacks last season. Yep. You know what? Teams made him the most blocked and chipped player in the NFL last year. And again, KD breakpoint. This got ahead of the Micah Parsons deal. Shout out to everyone who's contributing in the chat. I'll try to get to all your questions there because that's a big part of this. But to me, this deal was always going to happen. He is a Steeler through and through. He's an all-time Steeler. He's one of the best players in the league. You don't let those guys go out into the market. You don't trade away those guys when they're locker room guys, when they're leaders, and they're still projected to be the best potential player on the defensive side of the ball in the NFL. Now, again, I think that TJ Watt is. I see some people saying, "Hey, I'm not excited about this because he has to make his money." But I think TJ Watt is going to. I don't see a sign to me that TJ Watt is depreciably worse than he had been the last few years. I think towards the end of last season, he dealt with an injury and things happened. And he said, and he teams double teamed him and chipped him a lot more than anyone else in the NFL. Even PFF verified that with their new chip stats that they involved in the NFL last season. And I think that led to the Steelers saying, hey, we got to rethink how we do things. We need to reinvest in the defensive line. That's why they drafted Derek Harmon. That's why they drafted Y.A. Black. That's why they say Dana Quale. And that's why I think what they're going to be doing is moving TJ Watt around a lot more. And they're going to try to stop the run more so they can be more aggressive with their pass rushes. But this all plays into the grand plan that the Steelers have been putting in place, and that's TJ Watt was going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler with this newest contract extension. And again, $41 million a year is not what you think. This is not going to be something that bankrupts the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're still in position to make other moves off of that. In fact, as I was saying just on yesterday's episode, I would expect this contract extension to actually open up money in this upcoming year and give the Steelers some more wiggle room to maybe go sign that Julian Blackmon or Justin Simmons, get that extra safety that they could replenish their roster with since they lost Minkah Fitzpatrick in the trade. Or maybe that's some of the money that they spend to go get wide receiver 2 or that swing tackle. But money is coming in, and TJ Watt being part of this deal is a huge step for the Pittsburgh Steelers, a must thing, a must situation that needed to happen for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Ever wish managing your money felt easier? Maybe the Cincinnati Bengals do. With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
Damian Lamont Ollie Lillard is coming back to the Portland Trailblazers.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast.
He's back. He's back. The greatest Trailblazer of the 21st century, a franchise icon, one of the greatest players to ever wear a Trailblazers jersey, has decided to return home. The agreement was first reported by Bill Oram of the Oregonian, and then the details later reported by ESPN. Damian Lillard, who was just a free agent local basketball player, local dad, living in Portland, has decided to return. He agreed to a 3-year, $42 million deal to return for the Portland Trailblazers. That will take him through the 25-26 season that he's likely to miss, and then 26-27, and if he so chooses and it opts in, 27-28. Obviously, he could opt out and sign for more money or sign a different contract, et cetera, et cetera. Damian Lillard is 2 days removed from celebrating his 35th birthday. Happy birthday, Dame. He is likely to miss all of this season as he recovers from an Achilles tear. He tore his Achilles on April 27th in the first quarter of Game 4 of the Bucks first-round playoff series. He has surgery to repair that Achilles on May 2nd. Later, the Bucks decided to waive and stretch the 2 years and over $100 million remaining on Damian Lillard's contract. He still gets that money. I believe he just gets paid on time, just like his normal NBA contract. But the Bucks decided to move on from Dame after 2 years in Milwaukee to sort of maximize their ability to be as competitive as possible this season, or perhaps to, to make some tough decisions. Whether they are right or wrong, we shall see. But with Dame likely on the shelf for this season, Milwaukee just needed to or chose to go in another direction. So Dame now enters free agency with the money still coming to him, $50 million this year, whatever it is, and he gets to make his decision. And there was initially reported right away by Chris Haynes of Chris Haynes. I don't believe he has an affiliation right now, of Chris Haynes. Chris Haynes of Chris Haynes. He reported that, it was like Miami and Portland are the two places I would look out for. And then there were some other spots that people were floating around that he could possibly end up Boston. I don't think there was much interest from Dame, but people were saying, hey, Minnesota could make sense for Damian Lillard. Yeah, okay, all these spots, right? And then there was some reporting that Damian Lillard, one of the challenges was he wanted to be in Portland, Oregon. And any team that he chose to sign with was going to probably have to reckon with the fact that one of the hardest parts about him moving to Milwaukee is that his family didn't come with him. Due to whatever, this relationship with his kid's mom, like they got divorced. They didn't move with him. They're here. His extended family's here. His mom lives here. A bunch of his other extended family lives here. This is Damian Lillard's home in the off season. Not only are his kids here, this is like still home for him as an adult as well. And so one of the challenges of being in Milwaukee was just being away from all that, being away from home, being away from your children, all the sort of challenges of demanding NBA job is not only do you not get to see your kids very much, even when they're in the same city as you certainly don't get to see their kids very much when they're thousands of miles away. And so Dame said, hey, if I'm, the reporting was like, if you want to have me on your team, part of it is that I want to be in Portland. This is the place that I think of as home. Dame spent the first 11 years of his career here. He moved here as a 22-year-old and left as a 33-year-old. He did a lot of growing up here. He was the most powerful person in Portland at one point. One time, he sent out a tweet complaining that there were no fans in the arena during the COVID season of 2021, and by the end of the week, there were fans in the arena. Dude has pull at the governor's office. And instead of saying, well, I'm going to live in Portland because that's where I want to be, and maybe I'll sign a contract. And there is like a way in which Dame actually could have maintained his free agency up through the end of the year and signed a contract with another team in the spring and still maintained some of his contractual bonuses that would come with it, some bird rights stuff that would come with it, allow him to get paid more money down the line. He didn't do that. Instead, Portland, chilling with 13 roster spots spoken for and 2 roster spots open and money to spend because of the decisions they made, including waiving DeAndre Ayton and him giving some money back in the process, with money to spend and an open roster spot, Dame and the Blazers have decided it's reunion time. It's reunion time. He's coming back. Holy cow. There is a lot to unpack here that I will imagine we will do over the coming months. What I want to do briefly to close to wrap up the show here, because this is going to be like a 20-minute program. They usually are about a half hour. Because we're going to come back. The Blazers are currently, right now, I've just started playing a Summer League game. So I'm going to go watch that, and then we'll talk about the Summer League game after that. But first of all, this puts such a weird coda, a weird bow on the Damian Lillard trade. On July 1st, 2023, Damian Lillard officially requested a trade. By that point, in the beginning of July, in the summer of 2023, it was inevitable that the marriage was going to end. It was just how it was going to end. But based on like the decisions the Blazers had made, the decision to not trade the number 3 overall draft pick and draft Scoot, it was really about the pick not being traded, not specifically Scoot. Pretty much would have been anybody there. It's not like Amen Thompson would have saved the franchise, but like or saved Dame, I guess. But he may very well have saved the franchise. Pretty good. But like, because of the events of the summer of 2023 and some of the moves that quite frankly, that Joe Cronin had made around those decisions, it was inevitable that Dame was gone. And then 4 months later, he gets traded to Milwaukee. And the initial trade is a 3-team deal with Milwaukee, Phoenix, and Portland. And the Blazers received Drew Holiday, DeAndre Ayton, Tumani Kamara, and a couple draft picks, or an unprotected 2029 pick from the Bucks and a couple swaps. But Drew is not part of the plan. He wants to be rerouted. The Blazers acquiesce. They find out a place he can go, and they send him to Boston. He never plays here. I don't really believe in like the full transitive property of trade, so we're not going to get into Denny Avdia here in this particular trade, but you can on your own if you like. But the Drew trade is like another subsequent immediate trade that happened before a basketball game was played and only involved trading Drew Holiday. So I think you could group those together as sort of larger part of the Dame trade. Drew goes to Boston. Blazers acquire Malcolm Brogdon, Robert Williams, a 2024 first-round pick, and a 2029 unprotected pick from the Celtics. Brogdon and a couple of the picks acquired in this trade would eventually be used to trade for Denny Avdia. In my mind, not part of the Dame package, but you could see why it would be easy. Then this summer, the Blazers traded Anthony freaking Simons for Drew Holiday, acquiring him a second time. And then a few weeks later, they signed Damian Lillard. They just acquired the player they traded Dame for and brought Dame back in the same summer. The total package for what they sent out and what came back for Dame is like, if you really want to get into it, it's like Yusuf Nurkic, Anthony Simons, Nazir Little, and Keon Johnson. They traded those 4 players to end up with, in the very least, depending on how you want to count it, Drew Holiday, Tumani Kamara, and Damian Lillard. 2 years later. It's wild. I also want to address something, and we'll do that after the break here. A couple weeks ago on this very podcast, I said that it wasn't time for Damian Lillard to return. I sat here and shared my opinion that now, this offseason, when Dame entered free agency, this was not the time to bring Damian Lillard back.
There's a decision on Rashee Rice. He will play for the Kansas City Chiefs in 2025, but it's better than we thought today.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
What is Rashee Rice's availability going to look like in this season now that there's a decision? And we will start with the details about what this outcome has rendered on Rashee Rice and what the situation is for him going into training camp in just a few days. It's right down to the wire. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting. You can find my outlets at NFL33.com and RGRfootball.com. You can find my partner, Chris, over at KC Chiefs Corner. Don't miss that. We thank you for being with us and liking, subbing, being here on the YouTube channel, on the audio, wherever you are. And for you everydayers, thank you for making this your team every day that you do by using every outlet available to you, including the text line at 816-357-8781. This is a show that we've been waiting, thought it was going to stay quiet. Quite frankly, getting a sentence, a decision on Rashee Rice caught me off guard today. It's been absolute radio silence, right?
Not only a sentence, but like everything is done. Like his civil court cases, his criminal case, it's all done. Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of shocking. But Seth Kaiser does a great job talking about it, and we'll talk about what really happened here in just a second. But basically everything got done today. All the people that got injured have been made whole, I guess as whole as they can be. And here's where we go from here.
Yeah.
There's only one thing that's going to linger, and that's for Rashee himself. We'll talk about that here in a second. But this is what happened. After the result of this, Rashee Rice received a sentence today of 5 years probation, 30 days in jail. Doesn't have to be served consecutively and has to be served over the span of that 5-year probationary period. As long as he does that, keeps the rest of his nose clean, which for the Kansas City Chiefs fan base is a great thing because he must stay out of trouble for the next 5 years or he gets a felony conviction. So long as he stays clean and finishes that 30 days, there's no felony conviction for him.
Felony conviction and likely to go directly to jail. So that's the big key on that is it's not only a felony conviction, he will serve probably hard jail time. And I'm guessing that the prosecutor in this case said, if you do not keep your nose clean, you will be going to jail, and we will be looking for more of a maximum versus the minimum type of sentencing that they could do on something like this.
Yeah. Now, that's the headline. That's the big banner across ESPN or whatever it is that is the bottom line. There's details in there. Now, before we even touch any of that, neither of us are lawyers in our day life or anything else, but we're giving you the details so you understand the impact on the player. And I think that the biggest impact is on the player and his mentality going into this season. Total restitution to the victims of the accident, $115K that he will have to pay out. In likelihood, that's the only number that I've confirmed at this point. Have you seen something different?
Yes. Seth actually has Chief on the North. Great. If you're wanting more information on this, we'll give you as much as we can. But he talks about how there is also a order from one of the victims that Rice is paying them $1 million. And so that is part of this. That is part of the civil case. But the whole reason that this got done the way it did is all the civil cases basically got settled in the past couple of days. And now the prosecutor is saying, okay, you've taken care of the civil parts of all of this. Now we're going to give you the public and the criminal part of it. And this is your sentence. And one of the keys that's in this, and that's a big question, is he's going to have to serve 30 days jail time sometime in this next 5 years. Don't know when that's going to be. Don't know how it's going to happen or where it's going to happen, but he's going to have to serve 30 days jail time in order to meet his qualifications for the 5 years of probation.
Yeah. And ostensibly for his function as a player on this team, this sentence will override his next contract. That is going to be part of the negotiation. So it does have a lasting impact. For him personally, my guess is he serves a week at a time for the next couple of off seasons. So congrats, you won the Super Bowl. Now you're going to jail for a week. That's probably the way that you attack that if you're advising him. Doesn't have to do it that way, but you never know.
Yeah, the question is whether or not that's allowed in Texas, and that's not something that I'm sure of. It's possible they'll allow you to do it, or they could make you do it in just the 30 days. Some states don't allow you to break up your sentence like that. So we will see.
According to the affidavit and to Matt Derrick's reporting, it does not have to be served consecutively.
Okay, thank you. I didn't see that. So
yeah.
There's all this information coming out, and obviously it's a good thing that it's done. I cannot even begin to emphasize how shocked I am to be talking about this today, because 3 weeks ago when we talked about wide receivers, we specifically said Rashee Rice is likely going to play the entire season in 2025, and a suspension will come in 2026 once the criminal charges got done. And there was no talk about this at all anywhere.
No.
Knowledge that this was even having a possibility of coming out, and then all of a sudden it drops.
And this, I think this is a work in progress, right? This is trying to square it away. According to the DA in Dallas County, they've been working with Rashee, and he's been doing some PSAs about the dangers of street racing and everything, and they found that he was very cooperative over the top, and that's probably what led to this, what I would say, a lessened sentence for significant property damage, if nothing else, in this incident. I think for the football aspect of this, there's not much more that could have gone good for Rashee Rice as a person or for this team in general.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And when you look at this overall and you look and say, okay, well, the NFL's now they've got it in its hands. They've got to make a decision as to what they're going to do. We'll get that information out to you as soon as we get it. But the reality is that it's going to be basically a done deal. And I would imagine that we're going to find out what his availability is in 2025 in the coming weeks. I would imagine the NFL had at least some kind of knowledge that something like this was coming. And the Chiefs have said what they think the suspension could be, but we will see if the league agrees with that or not.
One thing's for certain. None of this is going to affect anything to do with training camp. If the NFL decided to suspend him for X number of weeks tomorrow, he will be at camp. He will practice. These are game suspensions. They do not take effect until the first week of the 2025 season at the earliest. But that's really all we know for certain, right? There's a lot of room for wiggle here. What do you see as your gut telling you?
Gut is that there's going to be at least 4 games. Team thinks it could be between 2 and 4. I think that the most I would expect would be a 6, but there's so many mitigating circumstances in this. He's not the face of the league, but the Chiefs have been basically the face of the league for the past several seasons, and this was a very high profile deal. I wonder if that plays into this, whether or not it should.
It's a very good point that it may. Whether it should or not, I think is a completely different debate. But you're right; both of those are factors, and it does seem, to your previous point, that they are paying attention. So, a quote from Brian McCarthy, NFL's Vice President of Communications, that we've been watching. We have, quote, been monitoring closely all developments in this matter, which remains under review, which means they were waiting for the decision, and now they have the information that they needed to act upon it. Now, Matt does a good job, and if you guys miss Matt Derrick, he's on with us every week on Wednesdays. Do not miss it. Typically, the way that the scenario works is a 60 to 90-day decision. Because this is so high profile, I feel like this decision could be made faster than that. My guess is about the first week of September, just before the season kicks off. That's where I feel like the NFL will make an announcement. How do you feel about it?
I think they need to do it before that. I understand that there's not really a concern as to whether or not it's going to hamper Kansas City when you make this decision. And I get that, and I'm fine. I understand the thought process, but the problem is that you've known that this is coming. You should have enough information to get to a point where you know you're going to have some kind of penalty. And I would think that you should be able to get a decision out in the next month, because the reality is if you wait, then you're in a situation where you're taking him out in the middle of the season, because his suspension is likely going to be something that will be handled in 2025. I don't have any doubt in my mind about that. So at that point, you want him to start as soon as the season starts. It's not great for Kansas City, but none of it's ever going to be great for Kansas City, and that doesn't really matter. But you don't want it to be a situation where they drag this out and it takes 90 days. And then you're talking about trying to figure out, okay, are you going to start the penalties in October, November, December? When's he going to sit out? That's not what you want to happen.
No, I don't think the NFL is particularly concerned about what we want or the team wants.
Oh, I understand that.
So that's where I'm concerned that they may drag it out there. But here's the most likely scenario in my mind, knowing that the clause that seems to be the most pertinent here is that the player personnel policy of conduct specifically talks about, quote, posing a genuine danger to the safety or well-being of another person, unquote. That is in the CBA. That is part of the policy. And it is very, very clear that what happened with Rashee Rice did endanger other people and their well-being. So I tend to think, just my gut reaction here today, that I think the NFL may try to make a pretty serious point, and I think they're going to make it more important. They might drag it out until that first week. And I think it's going to be more like 6, maybe 8, knowing that the process is then going to be appealed. Does that make any sense, or am I just overblowing this?
I don't think that he's going to appeal it. I think that this is something that is going to be a situation where he just wants it over and done with. Because I think if you look at how and I know criminal in the NFL is completely different. I get that. But if you look at everything he's done and everything that you've heard from the criminal stuff that came out today, he's been a model citizen as much as he possibly can over the past couple of ever since this happened. He is, doing PSAs. He's trying to make things right. And I understand some of those injuries you can't make right. I mean, you're not going to get that time back for those people, and I understand that. But I think when you look at this, it's a situation where he wants this over and done with. And if you do an appeal, how long does an appeal take? Especially if it comes out the first week of September that they're going to give him an 8-game suspension. How long are they going to drag the appeal out? Because at that point, if you do an appeal and it's an 8-game suspension, okay, say the appeal takes, I don't know, a month, which it shouldn't, but say it does. Then you're starting your 8-game suspension if it's upheld in October, and you're missing October and November games. So to me, I think this is something that, and this is what I really do think is going back to what I said before. The NFL has had some kind of idea. I'm sure they've been kept in the loop to some extent where the penalty was going criminally and whether or not they're going to take that into account. They already know all of that. They should be able to come up with a punishment and get it figured out to where when the regular season starts, when you're making the reality is you have to have this decision, I think, to the Chiefs before roster cutdowns, because it's going to affect roster cutdowns.
Yeah, I mean, that would be ideal, right, for Kansas City. I just don't know if the NFL can move that way. The appeal process is specific, though. From the time that the suspension is announced to the player and he is notified, he has 5 days to file the appeal.
We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. If you're tired of endless scrolling, trying to find the best deals, Gametime's zone deals pick the best seats in your section for you. And with Gametime, the price you see is the price you pay. No hidden fees. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets and show tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed.
I was shocked to see that Mike Williams retired from the NFL, and there's no way for the Chargers to replace his specific skill set.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers.
So just something I just never expected. It came completely out of the blue. I know this was shocking for all of us, and man, this is going to have a huge ripple effect on what happens in Chargers training camp.
Absolutely, across the entire roster. But the great news is that Trey Harris, their second-round pick, along with a lot of other second-round picks, is now signed, and it will be in training camp as soon as tomorrow, we would think. But it does really, open up the starting job for him for sure. I also have to talk about superhero Justin Herbert with his laser beam eyes. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. But man, David, we went from a minor injury on Wednesday to a retirement on Thursday. Not where we thought we were going to be starting the show today. We all knew that the biggest red flags with Mike Williams was going to be the injury history and the potential that you could lose him for the whole season. You didn't expect to lose him before you ever had him. This is pretty unexpected. I know there's going to be jokes. This could be shocking. The dude played in 18 games last year, right? After getting traded mid-season. It's not like he didn't play. He just wasn't himself. And it does feel like after whatever this latest injury was, it's not worth trying to come back from, is kind of the vibe that I get from it. It sucks for a player who has so many special moments with the Chargers to not kind of have this last final hurrah with this team like we thought he would.
Yeah, it just seems like it's very rare in football and across any sport that you get to go out on your own terms. A lot of the times, those decisions are made for you. And it just seems like this right here is an accumulation of all of the injuries that he has withstood throughout his career. And I think this last one, they might have thought it might have been something that he could get over, that he could rehab, that he could get through. And I think what most likely happened to me is that it turned out to be something more serious than they had originally anticipated. And it was probably something where he's like, well, that's it. I'm done. I got to think about the rest of my life. He's 30 years old. He's still got hopefully a lot of life in front of him. And there's more to life than football. And man, it's going to be really sad because I was a huge Mike Williams fan. How could you not be, for all the things that he's done for the Chargers, all the incredible catches, the amount of times he put his body on the line for this football team is something I'll never forget.
Well, especially because him making those big plays was a lot of the reason why he was so banged up constantly, right? Because he was constantly putting his body on the line to get wins in big moments. And I saw someone post a highlight video, a 10-minute long highlight video.
I watched it
on Twitter. And like, it's crazy that dude has a 10-minute long, not an easy catch in their highlight video. I mean, the entire thing was him making improbable, miraculous catches. And I mean, I think it's time to put some respect on his name now that it is him calling it quits. I mean, he's a borderline top 10 receiver in Chargers history, and the stats back it up. I mean, from the years 2019 to 2022, he averaged 58 catches for 950 yards and about 5 touchdowns per season. Like, that's a hell of a run, especially when they had Keenan Allen on the team pretty much that entire time. I mean, he ends his career 13th in receptions, 13th in receiving touchdowns, 10th in receiving yards in Chargers history. So if this is, this is it, man, he really will go down as one of the underrated players, especially considering where he started. I mean, that 11 catch, 0 touchdown first rookie season where he was written off so many times as a bust, but also as a Chief killer, right? The only two times the Chargers beat the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes were huge Mike Williams games. It was the 3-touchdown, 2-point conversion game with Philip Rivers as a quarterback, and then the late go-ahead touchdown with basically less than 30 seconds left against the Chiefs in Justin Herbert's only victory over Patrick Mahomes. And as much as maybe the stats won't tell how much of a special player he is, you're going to remember it by the moments, by the game-tying touchdown against the Raiders. They set up the game-winning score against the Saints, game winner against Tennessee only a couple of years ago in 2023. Setting up the game winner in Denver from Philip Rivers in triple coverage. I mean, it was just so many special moments for Mike Williams. But there's an impact on the field right now for the Chargers, and that's really where the biggest concern comes now, because, David, this is someone who, if you were kind of expecting, to be one of the bigger improvements in their offense. You were brought in to be a very specific type of player that could win on the outside because the Chargers were deficient there, and that is now leaving a really young wide receiving room, and now those roles that they thought they had with Mike Williams, somebody else is going to have to fill them.
Yeah, they are. And just to kind of put a bow on it, 2 stats that I really have to get into here. The league average for contested catch rate is 45%. Mike Williams in his career had a 54.4 contested catch percentage rate, which is 10% higher than the league average, just to show you how incredible. And also, he had a drop rate of 0.0 on throws 25 plus yards or air yards down the football field in his career, and that's 91 targets. That just goes to show you throw the ball up to Mike Williams down the football field, he was coming down with it or nobody else was. Like, it's just unbelievable, his ability to do that. But to circle back now all of a sudden the Chargers have an incredibly young wide receiver core. I mean, you look at it, it's Jalen Reagor in there, and then everybody else has 3 years or less of experience in the NFL.
2 years.
2 years or less, with, obviously Quentin Johnston going into his 3rd season.
Yeah.
This is a room that clearly needs another body, in my opinion. It is a very, very young room. And the thing that sucks is there's not a lot of people out there. There's not a lot of opportunities out there to be able to change this room. So they're going to have to rely heavily on who they have in the building.
Yeah, I think the thing is, just to put it kind of, in plain terms, this is someone who had a decent chance to be the wide receiver 2 for the Chargers this season, or was at least in the mix for that behind Ladd McConkey, and now you're taking him completely out of the equation, which means more pressure on Quentin Johnston to take that next leap, more pressure on Trey Harris, which we'll talk about now that he's signed too. But this is a big blow. You thought you had something that could have cured one of your biggest weaknesses last year that showed up in that playoff game, someone that can get those balls in gotta have it moments. And there was a whole lot of gotta have it moments in Mike Williams' resume. So it just is a big hole now that you thought you were going to fill. I guess now better than, having it mid-season and he's gone for the rest of the season, because it is the start of training camp, but not ideal because you probably would have attacked it differently had you known you were not going to have him. But I know a lot of people, David, are bringing up the hallowed name of Keenan Allen. Unfortunately, I don't necessarily see it. Even with this loss, as much as he means something to this team and kind of what he brings to the table, it's not a one-for-one fit to me.
No, I mean, it's definitely not a one-for-one fit. Keenan and Mike have completely different skill sets. But I think a lot of people are saying, oh, Keenan's going to play completely in the slot, and that's where Ladd's going to be. And, there's some truth and merit to that. But also, they're going to move Ladd McConkey around. They're not going to just have him in the slot. They know what he's capable of. And also, don't let him hear you call him a slot receiver, because he absolutely does not want to be called that. And I understand it, right? This is a guy that when he was put on the outside, he was making big catches. But, yeah, Mike Williams, notorious ability to go up and get the football. Keenan Allen, a much different receiver, a guy that, really relies on precision, on route running, on having very strong hands. That's, all part of what he brings to the table. And yeah, there's probably a little bit of clashing in styles, but there's not a lot of people out there. So yeah, Keenan Allen, I think, is a name that I brought up as someone that makes a lot of sense in my opinion. Probably not a perfect fit. It's not. And so there's not a lot of people out there that can fill that skill set that Mike Williams brought to the table.
There isn't. I mean, the options are limited. I mean, you can save the Gabe Davises. Amari Cooper, maybe, right? You had a cast off from Buffalo last year in Puna Ford that ended up working out pretty well for you. But the options are limited. I mean, I just don't know how they coexist just for an entire season. Yes, they can both play outside, but it's also not where either of them is at their best. And do you go sign a guy when you're going to consistently, if you're not using Ladd McConkey where he's best and then you're using Keenan Allen in the slot, I mean, one of these guys is going to be disadvantaged because they're both, I mean, especially at this age for Keenan, best in the same spot. So I don't necessarily see it. I mean, there's do you want veteran leadership? Can he still bring some things to the table? Sure. But I mean, Keenan Allen, I'm sure, wants a starting job and might wait for that to happen. I don't know if the Chargers guarantee him that, even if you could argue that they should.
Ever wish managing your money felt easier? Maybe the Cincinnati Bengals do. With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
Miami Hurricanes land a blue chip, versatile wide receiver to add to that class of 2026.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes.
Miami is moving on up in the class of 2026, higher into that top 10. We'll scout the newest Miami Hurricanes verbal commit, but in landing Samori Wingo, as we are joined here by the recruiting overlord, Brian Smith from the Portal podcast on Locked On. It's nice, Brian, because it had been a little while since Mario Cristobal stuffed Billy Napier into that locker, but he's getting comfortable in that locker again because in recent months, I had seen, 24/7 crystal balls on 3 predictions for Florida to land Wingo after official visit season. South Carolina is the other school that Miami beat in this recruitment. Maybe there had been some South Carolina trends. And in the case of Wingo, so he visited Miami officially back on the weekend of May 30th, which was the first OV weekend. And I had heard significant amount of Wingo buzz like before his visit, and then after his visit, things got very quiet. So I think this was an instance of Mario Cristobal's loafers kind of working in silence and Kevin Beard working behind the scenes, because ultimately, a couple days ago, it seemed like Wingo was Gator bound, Brian, and he ends up picking the U.
That's what we all assumed. I'd spoken with Brandon Olson. Florida felt pretty good about it. When we discussed receiver recruiting in Miami the other day, like Wingo wasn't really a topic. And here we are. So that just shows you how quickly recruiting can change in a very, very short period of time. But this is a really good football player. I'm anxious to talk about him. Miami needed bigger receivers. They needed some depth there. They got a little of both in this class. So they're off to a very good start in this class, and it's probably top 10 by pretty much any measurement now.
Yeah, Wingo, by the way, he measures at 6'2", 180-pound receiver. He's from St. Augustine, Florida, so just outside that Jacksonville area. You look at Brian, his stats as a junior in high school last season. He catches 65 passes for over 1,000 yards, and actually one of his best games was against American Heritage. So you talk about top South Florida competition. He had against Heritage 140 receiving yards, including an 80-yard touchdown. And I'm told about Wingo because Miami, of course, as every program should be these days, is really big on in-person scouting. Like, it's not just about the films and the measurables. So Wingo performed at a camp July of 2024, also a camp that Malachi Toney was in and some other top players. And I'm told Kevin Beard, Mario Cristobal and company were like really impressed by the in-person scouting of Wingo. So tell me a little bit more, as this is a player I'm sure you've scouted over the years.
Length. That's one of the very first things I notice. He can make catches that others can't because he's so long, and he's really good at making 50-50 catches, pulling it in away from his body like he just snags it. Got big hands. And he's also a kid that, despite the way he's built, he's got a little bit of a Michael Irvin frame, like early in his career, really long kid. Michael ended up playing at 215, something like that once he got to the Cowboys. But Wingo's a guy that'll play at 200 pounds at Miami. He's pretty thin right now, but strong, like really wiry strong. Screens, short passes. The first guy rarely brings down Samaria Wingo. That's one of the best traits about him, because a lot of receivers, yeah, they're fast or they're twitchy. They don't have a lot of physicality. Wingo's both. He makes first guy miss a lot, but if he needs to plow through, or you're only going to get a few more yards, he's a guy that plays more like a running back. And then finally, he does have the ability to go deep. That's the key with anything in college football today in the passing game. If you don't have the ability to throw over the top, teams will adjust to you. He can give you a home run threat.
Yeah, and on that note, I think you're spot on, because some of the feedback, I've been trying to get feedback this afternoon from the Miami staff about Wingo, and I'm told something that Kevin Beard and Shannon Dawson really like about him is his versatility. That he's got the wiggle and the attributes to play inside in the slot, but he's also capable of playing on the outside. And so, because you never know. I mean, Miami's got one of the best slots in the country currently committed in Vance Spafford. But to have a guy like Wingo, and I think someone else who possesses this versatility is Nye Carr, who's on Miami right now, can play inside or out. But there's a lot of value on that, right, Brian? The fact that with Samori and Wingo, you're going to have options to be able to play him at multiple spots in Miami's receiving court.
Depending on what they're trying to do or who's healthy situationally, maybe he's your big slot. In a year or so, he'll weigh 200 pounds. There are a lot of guys like that in college football. Texas has done it, Penn State, Notre Dame. Everybody uses different players in different spots. Wingo could play different roles. He could be your flanker. Maybe he plays some boundary. But most importantly, he's just a guy that catches the football and moves the chains. So his offer list was really good for a reason. And Miami keeps another in-state. They're actually doing a really good job this year just overall keeping players in state. They've got more than 10 from the state of Florida. Wingo adds another.
All right, so so he joins now. He's the third receiver committed in Miami's class of 2026. And another thing that I think Miami likes is that these guys all complement each other. Vance Spafford, who is your more seemingly pure slot, but he's got that crazy speed. Tyron Evans, who's got a lot of size, being like the 6'4", 6'5" type of body type. And now Wingo, who's a little bit more of a chameleon. So is that, to you, Brian, you look at that receiver class and maybe that's the end of it, or maybe there could be another player they add to that class before it's all said and done. But do you think that the three that they have so far check off multiple boxes?
Well, you could play them as a unit because Wingo could play the outside flanker spot. Obviously, Spafford would be your interior guy at the slot position, and then your boundary kid to get from North Carolina. So it's a complete class. You added more size, which probably was Miami's biggest need in this class. They get that, and then Spafford's a kid I've seen play multiple times. He's just absolutely electric. He might be the best overall player in the class, not named Jackson Cantwell. So they're at a pretty good spot. Like I'll take Cantwell over anybody. But this is the kind of class you expect out of Miami at wide receiver.
Yeah.
It's balanced. They've gained a lot of quickness, like Malachi Tony, great player, but he's smaller. You need guys to complement those kinds of players. I think that Miami, in a 2-year grouping, like if you look at the 25, now the 26 group put together, it's really good. And you got guys that can play a lot of different roles. So Miami's in a good spot.
When we come back, we'll talk about where Miami's class of 2026 now ranks. Been hanging around that top 10 for most of the process, and they do move up a spot with this move. Got the recruiting overlord, Brian Smith, with us. Got a new Miami Hurricanes, Samori and Wingo. Welcome to the family.
We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. If you're tired of endless scrolling, trying to find the best deals, Gametime's zone deals pick the best seats in your section for you. And with Gametime, the price you see is the price you pay. No hidden fees. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets and show tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners.
We're joined by the great Jordan Rogers of ESPN, here to talk Oklahoma football with us. Jordan, thanks for taking the time. You had John Mateer number 4 in your SEC quarterback rankings for 2025. Talk about what Mateer brings to the table and what's got you so excited about him.
I love him. And me and Greg McElroy actually sat next to each other doing our quarterback rankings, and we hadn't shared them before. He had Mateer as 1. Yeah. And I had FOMO because I was like, I wanted to rank him higher. I was a little nervous.
Right.
I loved that. Was my favorite film to flip on and watch. And I just didn't know what to expect, right? Because he's a little bit undersized, put up a ton of numbers at Washington State. When I flipped on the tape, I saw a kid that was elite at making throws off platform, at creating and making something out of nothing. And I think that's a lot of times that's what makes the best quarterbacks the best, right? Because everybody's got talent. Everybody can hit the hitch out there if it's wide open. But can you create tight window throws? Can you push the ball downfield? I think what's going to be best for Oklahoma, and one of the weaknesses last year was pushing the ball vertical.
Yeah.
They couldn't hit a deep shot to save their life.
Right.
And when I flip on the film, Mateer has a knack for what we call just changing the trajectory of his deep throws. Okay. So when a receiver wins really quick on the line of scrimmage, you don't want to throw one of those deep high arcers because then you're going to let the DB regain his, close the distance and make a play on it. So he does a great job of throwing sometimes low trajectory deep balls, high trajectory deep balls, fitting balls in windows and around guys that you just shouldn't be able to make throws like that. And also, we just saw Diego Pavia last year bring his offensive coordinator, Tim Beck, and light the SEC on fire to start the first half of the season. So I love that Ben Arbuckle is with him. You have a unique chance to not have to worry about the system, but you can worry about the guys. Most of the time, a new quarterback's worried about, I got to figure out the system, and then I got to figure out my guys, right? He knows the system, so he can lead and start to create that chemistry a lot faster.
Yeah, now that's going to be my question.
Yeah.
What is the chances you feel like John Mateer and Ben Arbuckle can repeat kind of what Diego Pavia and Tim Beck did, especially because, like you said, they brought the coordinator with the quarterback, and so the system itself is going to be easy for them to be able to teach to everybody, especially when the main guy knows it. But from there, you talked about the offensive line in one of your videos and the way they were shifting things. How do you think this offensive line, how critical is this offensive line now that it's got experience for John Mateer and for Jaden Ott, who's the running back they picked up to go along with them?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, think about it. Anytime you have an offense that and they're not like super heavy on RPO, but they're going to have some RPOs. You got to be able to run the football. Oklahoma couldn't run the football last year. It was a spread RPO system. What's the first letter? R. What's that for? Run.
You got to run it.
You got to be able to threaten the run
Yeah.
first. They couldn't do it. I was looking up numbers like Tennessee game. They had like 34 rushes for 36 yards.
It's terrible.
And one of the other SEC games, they averaged like 1.2 yards per rush. Like you can't operate like that, right? So the offensive line is super critical. I think one of my biggest criticisms last year as well was maybe not as much the Jimmies and Joes, but the scheme. So many times we flipped on the film and you got a tight end trying to block a defensive end.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Sound like us.
You just so now the reason you do that or the reason that happens is not because Joe John didn't know what he was doing, but it's because you're trying to take something off the quarterback's plate, right? So if he's not if you've got a quarterback that's struggling, as Jackson was, you don't want him thinking about every protection and then trying to figure out, okay, now what am I going to do? So sometimes you're in a non-advantageous situation. Now you got Mateer who knows this offense inside and out. You're not going to get put in spots like that. You're not going to put the offensive line in bad spots because he's going to know the protection, know how to adjust it if the defense overloads or shows blitz. So I think the offensive line by design and by scheme is going to be much better, let alone they got so many guys that played last year. The experience is great for them. I mean, that's going to be a boost for them as well.
So thinking of Ben Arbuckle's offense, what can Oklahoma fans expect?
Yeah, they love to spread you out. So they love to go 4 wide, 5 wide, overload, bunches. They like to really stress the defense pre-snap. And what that does for a quarterback, I love that, it spreads them out. And when you spread the defense out, they can't hide things anymore. You can't have safeties that are rolling. You can't have corners that are trying to split or show blitz or do this. Like, it tells you the answers before you even have to snap the ball. So just by design, the formations, the spread, the way they spread you out, it's going to give John Mateer just a little bit of an advantage pre-snap and knowing what's going to happen with the defense. So in a way, not really similar in structure to Tennessee, but Tennessee goes sideline to sideline so much it stresses the defense. Right. They're not a Tennessee offense, but in a way they love to spread you out. And what that does gives Mateer and his athleticism the ability to make plays when things break down.
When you were watching the tape, how did you see Ben Arbuckle leveraging the tight end? As you know, we've struggled with tight ends. We've got a whole new influx of them. But when you watch the tape on it, did Ben Arbuckle really use the tight end much to be able to force like more linebackers or something on the field? Or how did you see that offense running in that capacity?
That's a good question. I don't know if I actually have an answer for that. Okay. I'm not sure that I remember or that it stands out how much the tight end was used, but I guess the benefit of bringing your offense is you can make subtle adjustments to it. If you're installing an entire new offense to a brand new set of players, right, you got to start with the base and build from there. Well, when you got the base with this quarterback already installed, you're able to install it quicker. Now you can start to adjust the scheme and what you do. I think tight ends is going to be extremely important for Oklahoma. They're extremely important in this conference, in football in general. The reason we're seeing the resurgence of the tight end is because everybody went spread tempo. And when every offense went spread tempo and was 4 wide receivers, no tight ends on the field, the defense got smaller and faster, right? So instead of big 230-pound linebackers, now you got 215-pound nickels that also play in the box. Okay, now put a tight end on that dude. Now he can block that dude. So football is cyclical. Right. Like I said, I don't know if the tight end stood out as much at Washington State as maybe I think it will be a part or integral part of what they're going to do at Oklahoma.
And as you look at Oklahoma's defense, bringing back a lot of experience, yes, they lose Danny Stutzman, they lose Billy Bowman, but what do you think is the potential for this group going into 2025, knowing that, hey, they still got a lot of big-time playmakers on this team?
Yeah, the thing I love, similar, we were talking about the Vandy effect on the offensive side of the ball. Well, Clark Lee took over play-calling duties last year for Vandy, went back to what he does best as a defensive coordinator. And so when Venables is taken back over that reins, the attention to detail in every aspect of what he does, that's what got him the job. He's one of the best play callers in the country. And so he got a head coaching job. So I think by merit of details, this defense is going to be much better because they have to be.
Yeah.
Venables' job is on the line, and that's why he's taken over the role of defensive coordinator.
Right.
So I think they're going to be, yes, they're missing big pieces, but they still have a lot of, I think, talent, especially in the secondary guys that played last year. Bowen's the corner's name, right?
Yeah, Eli Bowen.
What's I'm forgetting the safety's name.
Robert Spears-Jennings.
Spears-Jennings is a baller.
Yeah.
Like as much as I flip on the tape and watched Billy Bowman, and how talented, Spears-Jennings just kept popping every time. I mean, we had a couple Arkansas games last year, I think, too. I was just so impressed with his ability to get down to the first level, second level, make plays. So I think they still got plenty of talent.
Yeah, a ton of talent on this defense. You're actually going to get to hear from Robert Spears-Jennings at SEC Media Days today, and we're going to have an interview with him ourselves here on Locked On Sooners. Special thanks to Jordan Rogers for joining us here on Locked On Sooners and breaking down everything with John Mateer, Ben Arbuckle's offense. Make sure you go check out his work on ESPN, getting you ready for the 2025 college football season.